travel from somewhere, you know, after a game like that. But it's a very emotional type game, and it takes a lot out of you. You don't sleep that well after any game, but particularly a game like that.
I think you have to be very pleased at this point after one of the best performances by a Viking defense in quite a while. Just a tremendous performance.
Well, we played a good football team. I think Denver qualifies as one of the top teams in football. I don't know that they're quite as good as maybe Dallas possibly, or a couple others, but they're right up in there, the top 4 or 5 teams, and I think we played them to pretty well a standstill, and we had our opportunities, a couple drop passes, and we might have won the game going away.
What is the deal? Speaking of the drop passes, I hear Ahmad Rashad and Sammy White going to send out to Fred Biletnikoff, get some stickum for their hands.
Well,
what's the deal? Are they hearing footsteps, or are they just not thinking the ball into their hands and losing concentration at the last moment?
Well, I don't think it's any of that. I think you saw Biletnikoff drop a pass against Denver last week that Denver player intercepted with a score 7-6, and Denver went on to score to make the score 14-6 and beat Oakland. It's like Carew. If Carew goes 0 for 5, I mean, it doesn't mean the next night he's not going to go 5 for 5. I don't think any receiver catches every ball. I think our receivers are as good as there are in football. They may drop one occasionally, but I'm not basically concerned about that because they'll catch a lot more than they'll ever drop.
Well, a crucial performance last night by Tommy Kramer, who came in the overtime in place of Fran Tarkenton.
Yes, of course, Tommy, in the course of the game, a lot of people are tired, including quarterbacks. They changed theirs earlier because I think Morton got a little weary, and Francis had played the whole game, and I just felt that he'd taken some licks and some bumps, and Tommy had fresh legs and arms, and he's on the sidelines, can see things going on, and it was a time for a change. Robert Miller came in and played well. We substituted some defensive linemen. Swilly played well as a substitute. We had a lot of players who played well. I think our depth helped us a great deal, and Tommy came in and made a couple of plays that were exceptional, except that there were so many people involved. Robert Miller's pass, as we'll see here, was a result of fine running by our other receivers to let Robert get underneath type thing. But of course, Rick's kick was the most important play of that drive.
You played against a defense that held Oakland to 2 field goals. You did not score a touchdown. Does that bother you a little bit as a coach that your offensive team didn't get in? Despite the fact that you won the game, you're not going to be able to just win games on field goals the rest of the year.
Well, I'll tell you, we're not going to get any place by gaining a lot of yards and not winning football games either, like we did in New Orleans. I'd rather win 3-0 than lose 34-35, believe me.
Well, we'll be back in just a moment, and we'll take a look at the first half highlights of the Minnesota Vikings versus the Denver Broncos right after this. Denver is a team that usually does not make a lot of mistakes on offense and relies on their defense to make the other team make mistakes, and then they capitalize on those mistakes. But Denver played a different sort of game in the first half, and they made a lot of mistakes where usually they do not.
Well, you include mistakes in fumbles and interceptions, but I think there was also good plays by the defense. And there was an alert play and a good force on that first lateral that they threw that we recovered. Then, of course, the interceptions. I think Tommy Hannon's was a great interception, as was Nate Wright's, and Bobby Bryant's diving interception in the end zone. I can't really blame that on Denver. I think those were good plays on our part. Denver does play a little close to the vest. As an example, they ran on first down almost every play, and we were set up for that and tried to stop them on first down, force them to pass, which we did, and we got a good rush.
Well, let's take a look at the highlights now of the first half between Denver and Minnesota, and I think you'll see a good performance by the defensive line that perhaps did set up some of those interceptions.
And Denver, as we expected, came out running, and we were pretty well set for first down runs, which the pattern they stayed with, well, certainly during Morton's time in the ball game, forcing them to pass. And here you see the first lateral of good pressure by Alan Page, and the lateral was just knocked down. Matt picked it up. Of course, you cannot advance a lateral. It goes down as a muff, and the ball is where you recover it and cannot be advanced. We come out running, trying to get out to their outside just a little bit early, and you see Chuck. We got some good 4- and 5- and 6-yard plays, but really not any long gainers, either passing or rushing, as their defense is very active. And there was the touchdown that we thought we had for that situation. We do settle for a field goal, however, as Rick puts that one right through the middle. I think all your field goals were right down the middle, weren't they? There wasn't any question. I always watch Krause on those, see what he... He's seen a lot of them go through. Here is some our defensive play. Again, I think we stunned it a little bit more in first down, kept them down to a couple of yards gain. Morton, fine quarterback, looking around, and there's the fine play by Tommy Hannon, who came in and place of Paul Krause, who pulled a muscle, played the whole game, and came up with some good tackles, and finally that big interception down in there into the field.
I think Morton really felt the pressure of the defense.
Yes, but he's a pretty cool customer. There's a tip that Bobby Bryant comes up with. The official signaling a touchdown, but he's got his colors confused, I think. And the first half was a defensive game, of course, with us holding a 3-0 lead on Rick's field goal.
The officials have been known recently in the National Football League to get a little confused. We'll get to that in just a minute. The halftime score was 3-0. What did you say to the guys at the half? You say, well, let's try to get on the scoreboard again, but if we can't, just play good defense and hold them down? Well,
no, I think we're more interested in maintaining the aggressive play that we had, I think, in the first half. Defensively, I thought our defense came off the ball well and pressured them, keep the pressure on. And I think going into the game, we realized it wasn't going to be a high-scoring game unless somebody really broke out. We thought at halftime, with a break, a couple of catches, we could have been ahead 21-0, but it wasn't. We were ahead 3-0. Now we had to go out and get some more points.
Well, in the second half, it was the golden foot of Rick Danmeier who really put the Vikes ahead, and he was set up several times by good Viking offensive plays.
Yes. Here's Francis back to pass, a little check out to the outside to Chuck. They really played our backs very tough with their linebackers. You see some of the moves that Chuck makes there. He beats two tacklers. They played their linebackers very tough on our backs and our tight end, and kept some of our patterns to those receivers pretty well under control. Here's a pass that Tommy throws late in the game to Robert Miller for that big gain to get in there into the field. That was the same pattern you saw there that Francis just threw him also. Here's a pass to Chuck. That was actually a screen pass to the left, but they had covered the screen so well that that looked like spearing to me, but I don't know. There's Francis, again, a good shot. You see how active their people are. Here's we did get a break, a tip by Ricky there, and Sammy catching the ball. That's the new rule. The new rule this year, that the ball can be tipped by an offensive player and picked up downfield. That's a rule change you saw there. Well, here's how far was this, Ricky?
I can't remember which one that one. One of them was 44 and the other was 46. I don't know
I think that was 46, and you had a half a yard to spare.
Yeah.
Jeff Seaman makes a play here on Armstrong, who we feared a great deal. He's an excellent runner with the ball. Good pressure here to Morton, and you see Nate Wright come in, pick that ball off, intended for Heyman Moses. Really, Nate got a good shot here. Gets by one lineman, two linemen, and then just gets caught on the backside. Otherwise, I think he might have gone. That gives us a good field position. Again, he was down there before the ball was fumbled. We're just pounding away now down in there in the field. Here's a fine run by Chuck. Just had one player to go, and we didn't get him, but we're down inside of the 10-yard line. Ricky, again, pounding in there, led by Swilly and Foreman, but it's hard to get more than 3 or 4 yards against that swarming-type defense. We finally settled for a field goal here, and I think we were disappointed that we didn't score in that drive.
Of course, Denver, they came back.
Well, yes, and here's the key play there. A high pass from center, and Wood kicks the ball. It kicks Alzado right in the mouth, but it's a small price to pay for the blocking of a kick to Alzado Field. And they go from here to score their touchdown. And actually, Jim Huff, that was all in 6 games, that was the only poor snap he had. And you see the fine rush we had.
Morris Reese in trouble.
He's in trouble, but he gets the ball out here to Ratty Odoms. And that's a mismatch if I ever saw one. Bobby Bryant, 168, and Odoms about 240.
And he can move it.
Yeah. And Reese out here to Upchurch now, who watched the moves that this young man has. And we were concerned about him also, and he had some fine plays like this, but I think we were able to contain him pretty well. And then Keyworth comes in for the touchdown. Or that me. And here's the big play. Alan Page blocking the extra point. As you saw him get between the center and the guard, actually turn the center, get under his shoulder, turn him, and get in to get his arm up and knock it down. It turned out that was one of the key plays in the game. And Weiss again here, first by Duck White and Mullaney. And
didn't see a lot of Canada in the game. I thought he would probably play a little more.
well, he played in their last game, but I think their backs were stayed pretty fresh.
This is Denver. They're getting down to where things got a little interesting.
Down to the end here. The clock is ticking away. You might be able to see it in the background there. And Weiss again gets out of trouble, and that's one reason he's in there. The rush was so heavy on Morton, and Morton doesn't move around as well as Weiss. And watch this play now. Watch the fake ball on the hip, rolling toward the end zone. 11 seconds to go. He's tackled, thinks about throwing the ball. Wisely decides not to. Now the teams are changing. The kicking team is coming on the field. The officials have called timeout, as you can see.
And you'll notice the clock in the background.
You watch the clock, you can see there's 3 seconds, 2 seconds, 1 second, and take your pick. At any rate, the officials look at one another. They do signal that it is good, and we're into overtime.
And Tommy Kramer.
And Tommy's now in the ball game. Here's he's rushed, which is about it's a 3rd and 8 here. And while Tommy is not what you'd call a quick in speed-wise, he's not a great speed merchant. He does pick him up and lay him down pretty good. Moves around very well. Here's the same play Francis completed early to Robert Miller. This actually was a little bit better play for us because it gets us in their end of the field. Hand off to Chuck. We're now almost to field goal range. We have to protect the ball so we don't fumble or to throw it away or have an interception. And
Rick does it again.
Rick comes in and he actually makes this one good by 4 or 5 yards, it looks like.
Made it look like an extra point, Rick.
Yeah, well, those are some pretty tough kicks and stuff, and it's just, you know, fortunate that I got the opportunity to do it and we got in there.
When you kick it, can you feel it when you hit the ball?
Yeah, I think that as soon as I hit the ball, I can pretty much tell whether I hit it square, and then it's just a matter of keeping my head down long enough to make sure that I follow through straight, and then hopefully look up and it's going right through.
Well, of course, the end of the game, there was a little bit of controversy how the officials called that last play by Denver, and we'll take a look at the league rule, and we'll try to explain it a little bit for you right after these words. Bad weekend for National Football League officials as a couple of controversial plays happened. One of them last night in Minnesota Vikings versus the Denver Broncos. As Denver was driving down, they had 11 seconds left on the clock, and they were going to try to score. Norris Week took the football, and I'll let you describe what happened from there.
Well, it was a bootleg run, really. He faked to one of the backs and put the ball on his hip and tried to go to the corner of the end zone. It's a play that some of us, all teams, have down in there, but I think our defense was very alert, forced him to stay in bounds and made the tackle, and really the clock was stopped when he was brought down. Now, the question is whether, why was the clock stopped? I think that's what everybody has, that question.
And as we look at this rule, now we've got the National Football League rule from the rule book, and from the time an intended passer is down behind the line until all players involved in that particular play in a clearly intended pass, that's another important segment of this, have had a reasonable time to reassemble. Now, to explain this, the players that were involved in that running play were the players that would possibly have the time to reassemble, not the players that came in as a kicking unit.
Right, they had to send in at least a kicker and a holder and maybe some other players in to kick the field goal. So they were not the players who were involved in that particular play. The reason for that, of course, is that if a passer is down while trying to pass behind the line of scrimmage, the receivers may be downfield, in which case they give them time to get back to the huddle before they start the clock. But this was clearly a run. I mean, he put the ball on his hip.
It wasn't a clearly intended pass.
No, it has to be a clearly intended pass, which generally means in a pocket.
And a bootleg is not a clearly intended pass.
This is a bootleg run. And our players felt, and they're aware of this rule, that the clock should have then been started because there was nobody holding him down, preventing him from getting up, preventing the ball from being spotted.
Well, it doesn't bother you too much looking back upon it now because you won the game, but if you had lost the game, it would have been a different story.
Yes, and of course there is no recourse. I mean, you can't protest games. It just wouldn't make any sense. The I don't believe in replays or anything like that. I think the officials have to make those decisions, and unfortunately, sometimes you're the victim.
Well, they've added a lot of officials in games this year. They're trying to improve the officiating, yet this past weekend we had two clear, very controversial calls. What seems to be the problem with the officiating? Is there any real problem, or is it just that these happen to come close together?
I'm afraid you asked me a question I'm not at liberty to discuss on this type of program, because I don't make that much money.
Mr. Pete Rozelle might have something to say if we comment on that, but I can say that they made some terrible calls this past weekend, and the officials, well, who knows what's going to happen. It's an awful burden to put on one particular person with the pressure of a National Football League game, but we'll have to see if they can ever straighten that out. We'll be back with our guest today, Rick Danmeier, and we'll talk to Rick about the field goals that he made last night right after this. Today on the Bud Grant Show is the hero of last night's game. If you can ever pick out one in particular guy that really won a game, Rick Danmeier did a large share of it last night as he kicked all those field goals and won it for the Vikings. But Danmeier, in the exhibition season, you'll remember Rick was having problems, and he wasn't kicking that well. And then it was in the Buffalo game, and we have a shot of a field goal, a 43-yarder with 8 seconds to go. You'll remember in that game it was pouring down rain, and Rick Danmeier came onto the field, and not too many people in the Met Stadium probably thought that he would make this. They probably thought he would miss it because he hadn't kicked that well in exhibition season. But what did he do? Under pressure, he put it right through. And I think on the Bud Grant Show the following day, I said that maybe he won his job with that particular kick. Did you think that, Rick, at that time, that perhaps you had made the team with that kick?
Well, I think it certainly helped my chances, you know, but I don't think that you can ever look at one kick or one game or anything like that to be able to decide on you know, who can kick and who can't kick. I think you have to take an accumulation of all the kicks that I've kicked since I've been here and put those all together and then look at the total picture. You know, I think that at times some of the people look at just one specific thing and say, oh, geez, you know, that was really a rotten kick, and I don't think you can really do that. I think you got to look at the total thing.
A lot of people might think that Rick just came out of college and tried out for the Vikes and now has made the team, but this is really a classic story of a player who has gone through not just 1 year or 2 years of frustrations, but as I count, 1, 2, 3, 4 years. He tried out with Atlanta in 1974, the Vikes in 75, I think, Chicago in 76, and then the Vikes in 77 and 78. And all this time, he was working at a health club and kicking day in and day out. Where did you get really the determination to stay with it that long? Did you ever think at one point, well, maybe I'm not going to make it?
Well, I think there's a couple things that entered into it. Number one, I think I'm a strong believer in what God can do for me, and I think that helped me get over a lot of the hard times and being able to cope with it. And I think that I just decided a long time ago that I wanted to be a kicker, and I was just going to keep going until all the opportunities were gone, and I kept getting opportunities, so I just kept coming back and finally got here.
When you heard that Fred Cox had retired, were you a little happy?
Yeah, I had to go against Fred quite a few times and stuff, and it's hard going against someone that knows as much about kicking and has been in as many situations as what Fred has been. You know, but I think that each time that I had to kick against him, I learned a lot from him, and I think that it's starting to pay off.
People might not realize, even though you're in competition, you actually help one another, whether you're a kicker or wherever you play on a team.
Oh, for sure. You know, Fred and I became real good friends, and I really admire him a lot, and I think that's one of the things that the Vikings do well is the older players help the younger players. You know, some of the teams you go with and stuff, it's kind of a cut and dry situation where you don't worry about it and stuff, but I think with Minnesota, everybody's out there together and you're doing it as a unit.
Well, whenever a field goal kicker that I've talked to in the past has had a chance to win a game or perhaps lose the game, you have a chance to be the hero or the GOAT, but when they go on the field, they tell me that really they think of nothing but that kick and nothing else enters their mind.
Right, I would have to go along with that. I think that if you think too much about the pressure and worry about missing the kick, that's exactly what you're going to end up doing. When I go out and kick, I try to think positively and say, you know, that I can help the team by making this kind of a kick, and you know, that's what I try to do.
Well, I think having confidence, I mean, I'm sure on the bench I had all the confidence, you know, in the world in what Rick would do, but I think I had it because I knew you had it.
I think that's part of it, and I think that working as a total unit, you know, with Mick centering and Paul holding and the people that we've got blocking and stuff, I think I have a lot of confidence in what they can do, and I can't even remember the last time I had a bad snap or a bad hold by those guys, or the protection hasn't been there. So I think that all those things enter into it, and I start to get more confidence in myself because Coach Grant has confidence, and I think it's a total picture there.
Well, really, I think the average fan doesn't realize how important the snap is, and also the holder in a field goal. I mean, very crucial.
I think that it probably will add close to 30% a year of kicks that are made by having people like Mick and Paul and then the people we have blocking in there. I think that we've got the best people in the league at those positions, and it certainly makes my job a lot easier.
Well, it was an excellent performance, and it looks like you solved some of your kicking problems because you got Rick Danmeier now, and you have to face another game, of course, next week against Tampa Bay, and it should be a tough one.
The defense will be very similar to what we've seen, and Tampa's going to be tough.
Well, we'll be back, of course, next Monday, same time, 6:30, highlights of Tampa Bay versus Minnesota.
This has been the Bud Grant Show with Minnesota Vikings head coach Bud Grant and Channel 5 sports director Bob Bruce. The Viking Player of the Week receives a $100 gift certificate from Eklund's. Furniture for the Bud Grant Show is provided by Gabberts. This program was a pre-recorded presentation of KSTP Sports.
Eyewitness News presents the fastest, most complete coverage of today's primary elections here on Channel 5.